US Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff has told families of hostages being held by Hamas that he's working on a plan with Israel to end the war. Steve Witkoff was greeted with applause and pleas for assistance as he met with families of kidnapped hostages in Tel Aviv. Tens of thousands of people gathered in the city's Hostages Square, demanding the return of the captives and an end to the war. The latest protests come after militants in Gaza released video footage of two emaciated hostages, prompting an outpouring of fear and anger.
This video, released by the armed wing of Hamas, shows an emaciated Evyatar David. The 24-year-old was kidnapped at the Nova Music Festival on October 7th, 2023, and has been held ever since. Another hostage, 21-year-old Rom Braslavsky, is shown in this material published by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad group. His family allowed the release of the still picture, showing him also visibly emaciated. Rom's father, Ophir, condemned those holding his son.
This video is not easy to watch. It's very difficult. As a father, I was outraged. He's only bones. He's crying that it's hard for him, begging to take him out of there.
Donald Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, was met with applause when he arrived to meet hostages' families in Tel Aviv. Witkoff told them the US would bring their loved ones home and that Hamas would be held accountable. Nearby, relatives and supporters gathered behind barbed wire, symbolizing captivity, to demand that the government do more to bring the hostages home.
Our children are experiencing a Holocaust. Never again is happening right now to my Matan and to the rest of the hostages. They will not survive much longer. They could all have been home by now if the previous deal hadn't collapsed because of politics.
50 hostages are still being held in Gaza, of whom at least 20 are thought to be still alive. Hamas has said that unless an independent Palestinian state is established, it will not disarm, thereby rejecting one of Israel's key demands for ending the war.
Well, for more, I'm joined now by DW Washington correspondent Benjamin Alvarez Gruber. Benjamin, great to see you. So how are politicians from both sides of the aisle reacting to Witkoff's visit to Israel and Gaza?
So there's currently a lot of pressure on the Trump administration to do more to address the suffering, to address starvation in Gaza. So there's a pressure on one side from Democrats, with 40 House Democrats signing a letter telling the administration to do more. But there's also pressure from within the Republicans, from within the heart of President Trump's base, with more of them publicly voicing opposition of the U.S. support for Israel. One of them, Representative Mary Taylor Greene, who joins several Democratic lawmakers and also leading genocide scholars, describing Israel's action in Gaza as a genocide. And President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, along with the U.S. ambassador to Israel, visited one of those 8 sites of this controversial Gaza humanitarian foundation that is backed by both the U.S. and also by Israel, which kind of aim to sideline the role that the United Nations is playing in distributing aid. They are operated by U.S. private security contractors, are located inside Israeli military zones. And this is a visit that comes as starvation in the Strip, and the international outcry over it is mounting. We have the UN, the United Nations, independent experts also warning for months that starvation was taking hold in Gaza. And also that's an alarming figure that they send out, saying that since the end of May, more than 1,300 Palestinians have been killed seeking food in Gaza, 859 of them in the vicinity of these sites. Those are numbers that this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is rejecting, but the UN Human Rights Office in Palestine is noting that most of these killings were committed by the Israeli military, that while they're aware of the presence of other armed elements in the area, they don't have information indicating their involvement in the killing. And another important aspect of this visit to Israel was the meeting with the family of the Israeli hostages that are still held in Gaza. We saw that there in the report. It was a lengthy meeting that was praised by the families, and where Witkoff told them that President Trump wants to, and I quote, shift the Gaza policy from trying to get a partial and phased Gaza ceasefire to reaching a comprehensive deal.
Now, Benjamin, the ceasefire negotiations haven't produced any deal so far. So is there still any hope left for US mediation efforts after this visit?
There is some room left, and the comments by Witkoff is basically an acknowledgement that the approach that Israel and the US have pursued over the last 6 months to try and reach a partial and incremental ceasefire have failed. So they now seems to be a different strategy. Witkoff also met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and Israel officials have said after this meeting that there is an understanding between Israel and Washington that there is a need to move from a plan to release some of the hostages to a plan to release all of them, to disarm Hamas and also to demilitarize the Gaza Strip.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there, Benjamin. Great to get that update from Washington. DW Washington correspondent Benjamin Alvarez Gruber.